Chapter 328, Sichuan's Upheaval, 1. About 4 ri approximate 2 kilometers, away from Chengdu. There, a manor boasting a considerable scale that could be called a small village was located. This place was none other than the Sichuan Tang clan. An emergency arose in the usually quiet Sichuan Tang clan's manor. It was due to an unexpected visitor arriving at noon when the sun was high in the sky. The visitor, wearing ordinary martial arts attire, had a disturbing aura with scars all over his exposed body parts. Sensing wariness towards this man, the warriors guarding the entrance of the Tang clan asked about his identity. "Who are you, sir, who wishes to meet the patriarch without any prior appointment?" In response to the warrior's polite question, the man briefly revealed his identity. Suk Peung. Peung. That name sounded very familiar. It was a name he had heard many times and was definitely the Green Forest Fighting King? Gasp. Green Forest Fighting King Suk Peung. He was one of the 8 stars, the leader of the Green Forest Alliance and one of the top experts in the evil path. The warriors, upon realizing his identity, couldn't hide their perplexity. The Lord of the Green Forest, who held a significant position in the evil path, had come alone to the Sichuan Tang clan, which held a corner of the righteous path. With his appearance, the Tang clan was thrown into chaos. All the forces guarding the Tang clan's manor were gathered, and they were ready for battle at any moment. In the guest hall of the Tang clan, more than 500 warriors of the Tang clan surrounded the area. Someone set down a teacup inside the guest hall. 2 middle-aged men were sitting facing each other across a round table. They were the evil path's master, Green Forest Fighting King Suk Peung, and the head of the Sichuan Tang clan, who also held the title of 8 stars, Thousand Poison Hand Tang In-hei. Suk Peung, who had set down the teacup, spoke first. "What a grand welcome. To think that so many people would gather for this Suk." Seeing Suk Peung's relaxed demeanor despite being in the heart of enemy territory, Tang clan leader Tang In-hei clicked his tongue inwardly and then said, "All of this is not because we acknowledge you, warrior Suk." Warrior. Hearing those words from Brother Tang's mouth doesn't feel bad. A hero like warrior Suk should rightfully be called warriors. To call someone who walks the path of evil and leads a group of mere bandits warriors is not unpleasant, but even a passing dog would laugh at it. There's no need to flatter me like that. At his straightforward way of speaking, Tang clan leader Tang In-hei's eyes narrowed. As Suk Peung himself said, he was not someone who should be called warriors. His martial prowess was certainly worthy of recognition, but he was merely the leader of mountain bandits and deserved to be condemned. Nevertheless, the reason for treating him cautiously was because his ulterior motive was unknown. Why did this guy come here? Broadly speaking, the righteous and evil paths were naturally hostile towards each other. However, strictly speaking, the Green Forest and the Sichuan Tang clan had no particular connections or clashes. Yet this guy appeared out of the blue. In the case of Sichuan, there were also the Amei sect, Qingqing sect and others, so it could be considered the territory of the righteous path. His boldness in coming alone was concerning. What ulterior motive did he have for visiting this place? There's no other way. Tang In-hei, judging that it was meaningless to beat around the bush, spoke straightforwardly. "Warrior, what business brings you to our family?" "Nothing much." "What do you mean by nothing much?" "As you can see, the reason I came here unarmed and without subordinates is not particularly to fight." "Not to fight?" Does he expect me to believe that? Those from the evil path were cunning enough to say one thing and mean another. Until their true intentions were understood, they couldn't be trusted. Then Suk Peung laughed and got to the point. "There's no need to beat around the bush, so I'll just say it. After all, it's not my style to rack my brain." "Speak." "I heard that the Tang clan is keeping a woman." "What do you mean by a woman?" "There's no need to play dumb. I've already obtained the information." At these words, Tang clan leader Tang In-hei scoffed and replied, "Warriors, this clan leader has no idea what you're talking about." You don't know? Then how about if I say a member of the Fire Faith Order?" As soon as he finished speaking, Tang In-hei's expression instantly hardened. However, Tang In-hei quickly relaxed his expression and played dumb. "What are you talking about now? It's no use pretending. This information comes from a reliable source. The reason I came here is simple. Hand over that woman from the Fire Faith Order." At his demand, Tang In-hei spoke with a stiffened face. Warrior Suk, I don't know where you heard such information, but coming to our family and demanding someone be handed over out of the blue is truly rude. Rude? What is? Asking you to hand over a member of the Fire Faith Order. By goodness, Warrior Suk. If rumors spread that the great Sichuan Tang clan is protecting a member of the Fire Faith Order, who deceive and mislead the people, do you think you can handle it? You're going too far. Too far. If there's no member of the Fire Faith Order, you can just deny it, right? Why are you only talking about rudeness and such? At these words, Tang clan leader Tang In-hei strongly denied it. Of course it's impossible. How could there be a member of the Fire Faith Order in our family? Are you certain there isn't? That's right. Since you're so confident there shouldn't be a problem, then let me search the Tang clan's manor. Bang. As soon as he finished speaking, Tang In-hei slammed the table hard. With his strike, the table split in half. As the split table fell to the floor, Tang clan leader Tang In-hei frowned fiercely and raised his voice. You dare to say you'll search our family? If there's nothing to hide, is there a reason to refuse? Refuse? How utterly rude. A mere bandit from the Green Forest dares to barge into our family, which holds a corner of the Righteous Alliance, and wants to conduct a search? Are you not afraid of death? Tang In-hei gave up on showing courtesy any further. From the moment Green Forest Fighting King Suk Peung said he would search the family, he had crossed the line and his anger had reached its peak. Even if he was one of the 8 stars, he himself was also one of the 8 stars. Do you wish for the title of 8 stars to change to 7 stars here today? It seems the Tang clan leader is very displeased. Gulp. Seeing Suk Peung drinking tea, Tang In-hei's eyes flashed with surprise. He hadn't noticed, but before the table was split, Suk Peung had retrieved the teacup on top of it. This alone showed that he was no ordinary person. At this, Tang clan leader Tang In-hei raised the poisonous energy within his body. If I let this guy leave alive today, there will be great repercussions. Anyway, from the moment he entered the Tang clan, the worst-case scenario had been considered. He didn't know where he had obtained such information, but the bastard had made a serious mistake. If he wanted to pressure the Tang clan by mentioning a member of the Fire Faith Order, he shouldn't have entered the Tang clan alone and provoked them. If it were him, he would have at least brought the Green Forest bandits or moved public opinion outside in advance. Tap tap tap. Right at that moment. See clan leader, it's an emergency. Hearing the deputy clan leader's voice from outside, Tang In-hei asked with a puzzled expression. What's the commotion? Right now, the Green Forest bandits have surrounded the area around our family. What? They've piled up a bunch of oil barrels and are aiming fire arrows while surrounding our family. At this, Tang clan leader Tang In-hei frowned and glared at Green Forest King Suk Peung. Then Suk Peung smiled brightly and said, I don't know much, but I've heard that fire attacks are strong against poison techniques. Suk Peung. This bastard was bait. Bait to keep all the Tang clan's attention focused on one place. Ha! It was absurd. He thought a bandit's scheme wouldn't amount to much, but he didn't expect the leader himself to become bait and concentrate all the attention in one place. Thanks to that, his excitement subsided and Tang In-hei spoke with a calm face. You came prepared. But do you think you can get away with this unscathed? Fire attacks may be a way to counter poison, but Sichuan is no different from the territory of the Righteous Path. Do you think other righteous people will let the Evil Path's group roam free here? At his words, Suk Peung crossed his arms, raised the corners of his mouth and replied, Normally that would be the case. Normally. What do you think I did on my way here? The rumor that the Tang clan is protecting a member of the Fire Faith Order is probably spreading throughout the vicinity. Clench. Tang clan leader Tang In-hei clenched his fists tightly. We've been tricked. This guy wasn't just an ordinary bandit. He knew how to employ proper strategy. If rumors spread that the family was protecting a member of the Fire Faith Order, the Righteous Alliance and other righteous factions would have no justification to help hastily. Suk Peung, seeing his perplexed state, extended his fingers and said, Tang clan leader. I didn't come here to wage war either. If the Tang clan and the Green Forest were to fight, there would be great sacrifices on both sides, and this could become the cause of another righteous evil war. That's why I want to make a peaceful proposal. A peaceful proposal? Ha! I'll give you 4 days. Within that time, choose one of the two options. Either bring the members of the Fire Faith Order you're protecting obediently, or let me search the Tang clan. You'll have to decide. Only 4 days. With those words, Suk Peung rose from his seat. Then Tang clan leader Tang In-hae spoke in a low voice filled with murderous intent. Rumble. Do you think I'll let you go easily? It seems you've gathered all the Tang clan's forces around the guest hall. If the two of us who hold the title of 8 stars were to fight right now, where do you think the damage would go? Grind. At Suk Peung's triumphant words, Tang In-hae gritted his teeth. Do you think this clan leader lacks the resolve to do that? Tang clan leader. Come to your senses. Are you willing to tarnish the great Tang clan's honor and risk sacrifices just to protect a single member of the Fire Faith Order? At these words, Tang In-hae couldn't say anything more. The bastard had already blocked all his escape routes. As he said, if they engaged in a fight here, even if they were lucky enough to defeat Suk Peung and the Green Forest, the damage would be beyond imagination, and the Tang clan would be stigmatized for trying to protect a member of the Fire Faith Order. 4 days. With that, Suk Peung confidently left the guest hall. Not long after he left, Deputy Clan Leader Tang Chul-young entered and said, Clan Leader. At Tang Chul-young's call, Tang Clan Leader Tang In-hae slumped into a chair as if drained of energy and said, I need some time to think. Clan Leader. This isn't a matter of thinking. If rumors spread that we were keeping that wench, it will be difficult to handle the situation compared to fighting the Green Forest bandits. Didn't I say I need time to think? Don't tell me you still have lingering attachments to that so-called precognitive ability or whatever? At his question, Tang clan leader Tang In-hae closed his mouth. Then Tang Chul-young clicked his tongue and said, Clan leader. It's time to let go of your attachments. Even if Song-ah, that wench, inherited her grandmother's ability, she is thoroughly a member of the Fire Faith Order. Do you think such a child, regardless of being a branch family of our family, would use her power for the clan leader's sake? Deputy clan leader Tang Chul-young, who had approached the clan leader who still remained silent, let out a sigh. Just what kind of precognitive ability was it that the clan leader showed such lingering attachments even in the face of a family crisis? At the same time, Deyong, a city about 2 days away from the northeast of Chengdu. In an inn there, a group was having a meal. They were none other than Mok Jae-un's party. They had been traveling without rest, and as they entered the plains, they stopped by a village to have a quick meal. Mok Jae-un put down his chopsticks while eating meat noodles. Seeing the bowl of noodles not even half-eaten, Sip Chun asked with a puzzled expression, My lord, is the noodle soup not to your liking? At his question, Mok Jae-un shook his head. Then he licked his lips and said, There's no time to enjoy a leisurely meal. We need to hurry a bit. Pardon? What do you mean by that? Mok Jae-un glanced at the group on the second floor of the inn, whispering to each other while carrying weapons, and then stood up from his seat. Rising from his seat, Mok Jae-un raised the corners of his mouth sardonically and said, The mountain bandits are eyeing my prey. Chapter 329, Sichuan's Upheaval 2. On the second floor of the inn, a group of men carrying weapons were having a secret conversation in whispers. Those damned mountain bandits must be crazy. To think they would dare to come to Sichuan, which can be considered the territory of the righteous path, and cause such trouble. Senior brother. Are you just going to sit back and watch? Shouldn't we step in and help the Tang clan? Calm down, junior brother Bo. Don't you know the rumors going around? Don't tell me you believe them, senior brother. Even so, there's no way the Sichuan Tang clan would protect the Fire Faith. Quiet. My apologies. Anyway, there's no way the Tang clan would do such a thing, right? Even so, the rumors have spread too quickly. It's probably the work of those Green Forest mountain bandits. Then what should we do? Are you just going to stand by and watch? If the Green Forest and the Tang clan clash, we of the Qingqing sect must help. As much as I want to, we lack justification. If by any chance the Tang clan really did such a thing, they would be condemned by the people of the Central Plains. If we hastily help them, we might get involved as well. Isn't that why we came without our sect robes? Junior brother Bo. Even if they are just a group of bandits, their leader is the Green Forest Fighting King. Do you think a superhuman with the title of 8 stars wouldn't be able to distinguish the swords of the Qingqing sect? Tisich. Junior brother is right. For now, let's exercise restraint and observe. I heard they are still in a standoff, so whether it's true or not we'll soon. At that moment, the middle-aged man called senior brother among the group stood up and turned his gaze to the lower floor. The man beside him asked in confusion, "Senior brother, why are you doing that? Look at them." At the middle-aged man's gesture, the group of men looked there. Someone with 2 swords at their waist was trying to leave, and people who seemed to be martial artists were following behind them. Anyone could tell that they were not ordinary martial artists but people from the martial arts world. However, one person among them particularly stood out. "Don't you know who that guy is?" It was a muscular bald man wearing a tattered cassock with torn sleeves and a broken rosary around his neck. One of the men who had been staring at him intently spoke up. "Isn't that Jia Jiamzhong one of the 3 madmen? You only recognized him now?" At his words, the men stirred. They had been focused on the conversation and sitting on the inner side, so they hadn't noticed him. However, their senior brother was sitting on the side with a view of the lower floor, so he seemed to have spotted that crazy monk. Most of those called the 3 madmen were lunatics known as madmen. Therefore, regardless of their background, most people from the righteous path treated them as heretics. The same went for Jia Jiamzhong, the expelled monk from Shaolin. "What is that crazy monk doing here?" "Shoo. Be quiet. They're still leaving." "But senior brother. That's where they were sitting. Look there." At the words of the middle-aged man called senior brother, everyone looked at the place where the bowls of food were placed. There they saw unfinished bowls of food. Judging from the fact that noodles and food were left in almost all the bowls, it seemed they had gotten up in the middle of their meal. At this, one man spoke with widened eyes. "Could it be that they got up in the middle of their meal?" I was constantly glancing at them because I had a feeling they were all from the martial arts world, including the expelled monk Jia Jiamzhong, and they suddenly got up in the middle of their meal. Then does that mean they overheard our conversation? It's possible. At senior brother's words, the men couldn't hide their perplexed expressions. If they had overheard their conversation and gotten up in the middle of their meal, could they be on the same side as the Green Forest bandits? I don't know if they're on the same side, but I can't deny it either. Senior brother, if that's the case, we can't just leave them be. I heard that the Tang clan is already outnumbered. If experts from the evil path help the Green Forest in this situation, things could get even worse. I think so too. Then what will you do? Even if we can't directly help the Tang clan due to lack of justification, we should stop any reinforcements from going to the Green Forest. Yes. At his words, all the men rose from their seats. Outside the manor of the Sichuan Tang clan, numerous mountain bandits surrounded the large-scale manor. Just by looking at the number of those surrounding, one could tell that they were nearly 3 times the number of those guarding the inside of the Sichuan Tang clan. They were the Green Forest mountain bandits who had set up oil barrels and braziers and were fully prepared to pull the bowstrings of fire arrows at any moment. The expressions of the Tang clan warriors watching this from the walls were not very good. Although some of them had a lot of combat experience, it was the first time they were in a standoff like a siege against their own family. As they faced the 3rd day in a state of tension, not knowing when a battle might break out, they couldn't take their eyes off the Green Forest bandits even for a moment. Among these Tang clan martial artists, those guarding the main gate were glaring at certain individuals in the distance with eyes full of hatred. Munch munch. The ones they were glaring at were none other than Green Forest fighting King Suk Peiyong and the Green Forest executives, who had set up a large tent across from the Tang clan's gate, about 20 jang away, and were sitting under it with a luxurious feast. Damn those bastard bandits. Are they trying to provoke us now? Anyone could see that it was an act of provocation towards them. Of course, that was the correct answer. Haha. Let's have a drink, everyone. We're having a real feast after coming all the way to Sichuan. The executives showed off, deliberately enjoying themselves noisily while tilting their wine cups and tearing into the meat. It was to lower the morale of the Tang clan warriors and provoke them. Surprisingly, it was quite effective. Because they had the advantage in numbers, the Green Forest bandits were maintaining the siege day and night through rotation, but the Tang clan warriors were at a disadvantage in numbers, so they were standing guard all day without getting a wink of sleep. As a result, fatigue naturally accumulated and they would also get provoked. Seeing the haggard faces of the Tang clan warriors, Hyung Tek, known as the left arm of the Green Forest fighting king and the throwing killing guest among the executives, said with a grin, revealing his yellowed teeth, "Hee. Fighting King. Seems to be working. I wondered why you gave them 4 days, but it wasn't just for that. You did it to slowly kill them. It serves multiple purposes. If it serves multiple purposes, do you have another reason? You don't need to know. With those words, Green Forest Fighting King Suk Peung downed his wine cup. At that moment, the words she had said suddenly came to his mind. It might be difficult to give them a long time, but how about giving them 4 or 5 days? Give them time. Yes. Even a cornered mouse being hunted will bite the neck of the chasing cat. So I thought, how about giving them time to think? Giving them time to think is good. At first he thought there was some sense in those words. The goal wasn't to wage war blindly, but to simply take the member of the Fire Faith Order. But was there really a need to give them 4 or 5 days? If they lacked justification, it would be a different story, but since they had the advantage of the Tang clan protecting a member of the Fire Faith Order, there was no need to give them a long time. Rather, it might have been better to give them only half a day to think and push forward without giving them a chance to think. However, since he had already made such a proposal, it was awkward to change it midway. He just hoped that the head of the Tang clan wouldn't make the foolish choice of trying to protect the member of the Fire Faith Order. The carriages and horses of Mok Jaeongun's group, having left Deyong, were heading southwest at a fast pace. However, just 1 li, approximate 500 meters, away from the village, their path was blocked by a group of people. They were 30 masked individuals wearing gray martial arts attire. Seeing these people, all carrying swords, Seop Chun sighed and said to Mong Muyak, who was riding a horse next to him, "There's no way there would be mountain bandits on a forest path not far from the village. Are they the ones from the inn?" "It seems so." Mong Muyak nodded in agreement. Although they were wearing masks, they were all wearing similar gray martial arts attire, and since they had rented the entire second floor of the inn, he remembered the whole group. "Hey guys. It's good that you're hiding your faces, but didn't you think about changing your clothes and weapons?" At Seop Chun's shout, the men in gray martial arts attire shut their mouths. This was because they had nothing to say in response. They had to overtake them with lightness skills before they set off, so they didn't have time to pay attention to their attire. They had hidden their faces midway, but it was also to prepare for any unexpected situations since it was awkward to officially step forward. One of the men in gray martial arts attire, who was called Senior Brother, stepped forward and shouted, "Where are you going?" To that question, the expelled monk Jajimjong, who was sipping from a gourd, laughed and said, "What does it matter to you where others go?" At those sarcastic words, one of the men in gray martial arts attire flared up and shouted, "You're going to help the Green Forest bandits, aren't you?" "Green Forest? You mean those groups of mountain bandits? Don't play dumb. Isn't it to help the Green Forest bandits and attack the Tang clan?" "Help the Green Forest bandits? Oh, that's quite a refreshing idea." Jajimjong scoffed at their words. Creak. At that moment, the carriage door opened and someone slightly revealed their face. It was Mok Jaeongun. "What's the matter?" To that question, Ma Arehayan, who was guarding the side of the carriage, replied, "It seems the people from the second floor of the inn have followed us." "Ah, those gentlemen." "Yes, what should we do?" To that question, Mok Jaeongun lightly scanned the men in gray martial arts attire and then casually said, "We're in a hurry, so just have 1 or 2 people stay behind to deal with them and follow us." With those words, Mok Jaeongun went back into the carriage. It wasn't just Mok Jaeongun's subordinates who heard those words, so the men in gray martial arts attire were dumbfounded. Huh? Deal with what? Although they were hiding their identities, they were the elite swordsmen of the renowned righteous sect, the Qingqing sect. As those who had been dispatched to assess the situation upon hearing the news of the confrontation between the Sichuan Tang clan and the Green Forest, they couldn't help but feel their pride hurt by those words. At this, the senior brother stepped forward and showed his anger. "You're truly arrogant people. I don't know who you think we are to show such confidence, but if you want to leave this place, be prepared." The senior brother of the Qingqing sect who was speaking stopped midway. He was raising his voice and speaking, but none of them were listening to his words. "The master said to do that, so who will do it? Do you want to do it? Or should this monk do it? If you don't want to do it, at least answer." "Damn it. Anyway, I don't like it. Just have any 2 of you stay behind and deal with it." "No, is it difficult because of that guy over there? Or both of you deal with it and come back." "This monk can't do it because that guy is pissing me off." You're just pushing it away because you're lazy, aren't you? Tsk tisk. Seop Chun, who was clicking his tongue, looked at Hyun Munja, the senior brother of the Qingqing sect swordsman, and said, "That guy seems to be somewhat capable." Hyun Munja was a renowned swordsman even within the Qingqing sect. Apart from the sect leader and the elders, he possessed the highest martial prowess. He has reached the early stage of the transcendent realm. Mong Muyak, who had assessed his skills at a glance, felt a competitive spirit. He had been wanting to test his rapidly improving martial prowess against a proper expert recently. Thus Mong Muyak said, "I'll deal with that guy. You handle the rest, Seop Chun." "What? I was going to deal with that guy." This was the same for Seop Chun. He also had a strong desire to test his increased skills by facing the most outstanding one among them. At their bickering, Hyun Munja felt genuine anger surging within him. The only one he was wary of was Jiamjong, one of the three madmen and the demonic demon fist sage. But how much did those young-looking fellows among them look down on him to give him such humiliation? Shing. Hyun Munja drew his sword halfway and was about to step forward. But right at that moment, "No. I'll just do it myself for the sake of time." The voice of that young fellow who had said to deal with them or whatnot came from inside the carriage. Just what kind of person was this guy to spout such arrogant words, even though they had hidden their identities? It seemed he needed to be taught a lesson. Creak. At that moment, the carriage door opened and two swords floated out from inside as if they were alive. Seeing this, Hyun Munja's body froze with his sword half drawn. Chapter 330, Sichuan's Upheaval 3. The moment the carriage door opened, two swords floated out like swimming fish. Seeing this, Hyun Munja of the Qingqing sect, who had half drawn his sword, froze in place. The same went for the other Qingqing sect warriors. Could it be? Qi-controlled swords? Any warrior who wielded a sword would recognize it. It was said that the Qi-controlled sword technique could only be achieved when one's sword reached the realm of perfection and their internal energy was close to the peak of peaks. Senior brother Hyun Munja and the other Qingqing sect warriors were stirred. There weren't many swordsmen in the entire martial arts world who could wield the Qi-controlled sword technique. How could such a supreme expert appear in a place like this? Moreover, the face they saw earlier looked no older than 17 or 18 years old, let alone a young adult. That can't be. No way. At that moment, Hyun Munja thought that the person displaying this rare technique was not that young man. There must be an extraordinary master inside the carriage. Swish. Right at that moment, the Qi-controlled swords flew towards him at a lightning-fast speed, startling him and making him exert all his strength to dodge. By a hair's breadth, the swords grazed past his left shoulder. However, stab. Although he managed to dodge the Qi-controlled swords, the other Qingqing sect warriors did not. Like skewering with a skewer, the swords instantly pierced through the heads and hearts of three Qingqing sect juniors. Stab, stab, stab. Ack. Ugh. Except for the one whose head was pierced, the other two collapsed with dying screams. As 3 lives were lost to the Qi-controlled swords in an instant, the Qingqing sect warriors panicked and broke their formation, scattering in all directions. Zhongwan. Junior brother Bu Haiyan. Ru run. There was no time to feel anger or grief over the deaths of their martial brothers. Mok Jiangun's 2 swords, Evil Commandment Sword and Plundering Killing Sword, pierced through the fleeing Qingqing sect warriors at a tremendous speed as if hunting. Stab, stab, stab. How can this be? As 4 more people died in an instant, Hyun Munja's eyes trembled like crazy. He had thought that none of them would be very strong since they were all young, except for the expelled monk demonic demon fist sage Jiamjong. But that was a miscalculation. They had touched something they shouldn't have. If someone could freely control 2 Qi-controlled swords and render experts from the first rate to the early stage of the peak realm so helpless, they could be considered a top expert in the martial arts world, equal to or surpassing the 8 stars. They were already beyond their ability to handle. However, it's impossible for everyone to escape. Nearly a third of them had already been killed. If he used them as shields, he might be able to save his own life, but how could he abandon his martial brothers and flee? Moreover, drip, drip, drip. The wound on his left shoulder, which had been cut by the sword, was strange. He had clearly pressed the blood-stopping points and sent true energy to the wound, but it kept bleeding and the pain was gradually intensifying. A strange sword. the wound from the cut wasn't healing. Even if he tried to escape, he didn't know what would happen. Thus Hyun Munja made a decision. Whoosh! Hyun Munja launched himself towards the carriage. Even if it was a supreme expert, if he recklessly charged in with a desperate move, sacrificing his own energy, couldn't he at least buy some time for his martial brothers to escape? Say, senior brother. Seeing his actions, one of the juniors shouted. Then Hyun Munja, without stopping his movement, shouted loud enough for everyone to hear. Everyone disperse. Senior brother. Hearing that shout, the juniors understood senior brother's intention. They couldn't let senior brother's sacrifice go to waste, so they tried to scatter. However, whoosh! At that moment, a black chi erupted from the flying swords. Then, at a speed incomparable to before, evil commandment sword and plundering killing sword began piercing through the Qingqing sect warriors. Stab, stab, stab. Arg. Ack. Hyun Munja, who had tried not to look, couldn't hide his shock at the sight. Although it had a completely different glow from ordinary sword chi, it was definitely sword chi. Chi-controlled sword chi? He couldn't believe it. Even grandmasters who had reached the level of the 8 stars couldn't display the divine skill of wielding chi-controlled swords and manipulating chi. That meant a true grandmaster of the 6 heavens level. It was a divine skill that was impossible unless one was at the 6 heavens level, known as the current pinnacle of the martial arts world. Hyun Munja, who had been launching himself with the resolve to make a desperate move, fell into despair rather than shock the moment he saw the chi-controlled sword chi. Just who was the person inside that carriage? At that moment, someone grabbed the back of his neck as he was launching himself. Then they smashed his face directly into the ground. Bam. Ugh. The one who grabbed him and slammed him down was none other than Seop Chun. He had quickly caught up and grabbed him because he was trying to target his lord, Mok Jae-young, after casually passing by him. Seop Chun grabbed his hair and lifted him up. What's the use of a pawn trying to capture the king out of the blue? You bastard! Hyun Munja tried to shake off Seop Chun's hand grabbing his hair. But the moment he grabbed his wrist, he could instinctively tell that Seop Chun's internal energy far surpassed his own. What? Just who are these guys? This fellow also looked to be no older than a young adult, but how could his cultivation be so strong? It was unbelievable. Hyun Munja's eyes trembled violently. Just what was happening in Sichuan with the Green Forest bandits surrounding the Tang clan's manor. However, he could no longer continue his thoughts. Crack. Seop Chun had snapped his neck. They had followed them just because they encountered them at the inn, so there was no benefit in leaving loose ends. Seop Chun, who had killed him, clicked his tongue as if disappointed. He wondered how it would have been if they had properly fought, considering they seemed to be from a righteous sect. He had killed him too easily because he was injured and had become impatient. Well, it can't be helped since we're short on time. At that moment, someone approached from the side and said, "Step aside." It was Ma Arehayan in a mask. Huh. It's the Lord's order. Ah. With that, Seop Chun stepped to the side. Then Ma Arehayan picked up the sword of Hyun Munja, who had died with a broken neck, and began carving something on his forehead. He carved a vertical line through the center of the character too. It was the symbol of a secret society where the third wooden slip served as the leader. What's this? Carve it on the bodies of all the dead. Is that also the Lord's order? Yes. Understood. At Ma Arehayan's words, he went towards the other dead bodies. Meanwhile, the evil commandment sword and plundering killing sword, which had been floating in the air and killing all the Qingqing sect warriors with the wondrous technique of chi-controlled swords, returned to the carriage. Seeing the 2 swords, Ma Arehayan clicked his tongue inwardly. He's getting stronger and stronger. From inside that carriage, without taking a single step, he had discerned the movements of the enemies with just his chi sense and killed them all. It seemed he had reached a level that was truly difficult to approach, which was both awe-inspiring and admirable. At this point, even his master So Yaren would probably be no match for him. He's truly a monster. On the morning of the 4th day, the last day of the time given by Green Forest fighting King Suk Peung. In the rear courtyard of a villa inside the Sichuan Tang clan's manor. A woman in her early 20s with a graceful beauty, wearing short hair, stood in front of Tang In-hei, the head of the Tang clan, with her hands neatly clasped. Tang clan leader Tang In-hei, who had been staring intently at the woman, opened his mouth. "Song-ah, Have you still not changed your mind? At this question, the woman called Song-ah had a peculiar expression. Her name was Yi Song-ah. She was the offspring of the Yi family, a branch family mixed with the blood of the Tang clan, and the only granddaughter of the Fire Faith Order's Holy Fire Priestess. Clan leader. Today is the last day of the time he proposed. What do you want me to do? At Tang In-hei's words, Yi Song-ah recalled the conversation he had 4 days ago. To be honest, our family is facing a crisis. Is it because of those surrounding the manor right now? Of course, with the fighting king present, they are also a threat. But there's something even bigger. Something bigger. I don't know where the information leaked from, but the fact that we are protecting you is spreading everywhere. There aren't many ways to handle this. Although you are also a branch family member and a family we must protect as the clan leader, I have to make choices that prioritize the Tang clan. Yi Song-ah knew. Just as she followed the teachings of the Fire Faith Order, the clan leader prioritized the interests of the Tang clan. If it brought harm to the Tang clan, he wouldn't forgive even a branch family member. If it weren't for that, he probably wouldn't have even had this conversation and would have abandoned her for the sake of the Tang clan from the start. The reason he was explaining the situation in detail now was ultimately, but if you promise to abandon the Fire Faith Order and use your power for the sake of our family, I know the Tang clan will protect you even if we have to bear everything. Yes, that was the purpose. Her grandmother, the Holy Fire Priestess, had lost her qualification, and her power had been fully passed down to her. And Tang In-hei, the head of the Tang clan, wanted it. He had given her 4 days to think about it for this reason. Now, depending on your decision, I will. Boom. Before he could even finish his words, a tremendous boom erupted. Tang In-hei frowned at the sound that even made the villa building tremble slightly, then stopped what he was saying and went outside. Just a moment ago, outside the manor of the Sichuan Tang clan, Green Forest fighting king Suk Peong was sitting under a tent with his arms crossed and his legs on the table. He hadn't expected them to use up the entire given time. Seeing this, it was clear that the Fire Faith Order member she had mentioned was indeed inside. Otherwise, there was no way they would have stalled for so long. However, thanks to this, a question arose. Just what is that Fire Faith Order member that the Tang clan is trying so hard to protect? They were a part of the Righteous Alliance and a member of the Righteous Path. For them, the fact that they were protecting a Fire Faith Order member was a fatal weakness and a stain on their honor. Yet, the Sichuan Tang clan had been pondering for nearly 4 days without giving up on the Fire Faith Order member. Did that mean there was something worth protecting even if they had to bear all of this? Just what is it? He had come here and done this because it was her request, but that woman also wouldn't make a pointless request. There must be a reason for her request. Was there something special about that Fire Faith Order member? As he was pondering. Hearing a voice from somewhere, Suk Peong turned his gaze in that direction. There he saw a young man with a troubled expression, also with his arms crossed. Suk Peong raised one eyebrow. Who is this guy? He had never seen this fellow before. His attire was neat and his face was very handsome, so he didn't seem to be one of the Green Forest bandits. But when did this fellow enter the tent? Wait a moment. Why didn't I notice this fellow coming so close? Something was strange. He didn't feel anything special from this fellow in terms of chi sense. Yet he hadn't detected his presence as he approached. Did that make sense? He, one of the 8 stars known as the current top experts of the martial arts world, had failed to detect even the presence of such a young fellow until he was right in front of him? Who are you, young man? Suk Peong took his legs off the table, stood up and spoke. Then the young man who had been standing with his arms crossed and a troubled expression opened his mouth. It's strange. What? I came here because I heard the Tang clan was in crisis, but it doesn't seem like a crisis at all. Suk Peong frowned. What nonsense was this guy spouting? Could it be that he had come to help the Tang clan? Who the hell are you? Me. Yes. Who else do you think I'm talking about? Aha. I see. I am Mujin, the eldest son of the Yu family. Yu Mujin. It was a name he had never heard before. Then the young man who had introduced himself as Yu Mujin scratched his head and said, It seems to be nothing serious, unlike what I was worried about, so I'll just leave. Ha. At his words, Suk Peong scoffed as if absurd. Who do you think you are to come and go as you please? If there's nothing to see, I'll just leave. Ha. Suk Peong let out a sigh. And the moment that sigh ended, swish. His figure blurred and he instantly reached in front of the young man named Yumujin. Having approached him in an instant, Suk Peung threw a punch towards the fellow's abdomen. Bam! It was a strike delivered with 5-star power, to properly test him since he had approached without any presence. However, is this all? The eyes of Suk Peung, who had thrown the punch, widened. It felt like he had hit a thick rock rather than the abdomen. Of course, even a thick rock would shatter from his punch, but this fellow was looking at him without moving an inch. Come to think of it, he hadn't noticed because the fellow's clothes were loose, but why was his upper body so thick? His entire body was a mass of muscles. At that moment, bam! Ugh! Suk Peung's body was pushed back 5 steps by the punch swung by the young man. Murmur murmur. The surroundings stirred. The Green Forest bandits, who had been watching what the Fighting King was doing at the sudden commotion, couldn't hide their surprise. It was the first time they had seen the Green Forest Fighting King being pushed back. The person involved, Suk Peung, was equally surprised. Throb throb. His abdomen throbbed violently and nausea welled up. What kind of punch does this bastard have? Even without internal energy, the impact shook his entire body, pushing him back. At this, Suk Peung's wariness seemed to have risen and he properly assumed a stance. He was also confident that he wouldn't lose to anyone in terms of strength, having secured a seat among the 8 stars solely with his external martial arts. As he assumed his stance, "Oh, you're strong. With this level, you must belong to the quite powerful group in the martial arts world. What the hell are you talking about? I thought 5 stages would be enough, but it seems I'll need to go to 4 stages. What? What was this bastard saying?" As he was puzzled, he saw Yumujin fiddling with a golden ring-like object on his right arm. He turned it. Clink clink clink. That sound was grating. Feeling a strange sense of foreboding, Suk Peung made the first move. Whoosh. If it was 5-star power until now, this time he drew out 10-star power in an instant. This punch contained enough power to blow away a small hill. However, grab. No way. Yumujin, the young man, lightly caught his punch with one hand. But that wasn't the end. Sizzle. The biceps and forearm muscles of the fellow's right arm swelled up distinctly, turning red and emitting white steam. Suk Peung's eyes trembled at the extremely bizarre sight. Then Yumujin, the young man, grinned and said, "It's better to bite down hard. Wait a moment." Boom. Before he could even speak. At that moment, a fist struck his face and his body was hammered into the ground. The power was so strong that the ground instantly caved in nearly 5 jang, approximate 16.5 meters, and fragments flew in all directions. Chapter 331, Sichuan's Upheaval 4. About 53 years ago, Tang Yunzhong, the Thousand Poison Hand and the Tang clan's head from 2 generations prior, was about to face a showdown. His opponent was Baekyu, an up-and-coming expert in poison techniques from the evil faction, known by the alias Lord of 10,000 Poisons. When it came to poison techniques, the Tang clan was considered the best alongside the Guyong family, located on the path to the western regions. However, this poison expert Baekyu had not only earned the title of one of the top 10 experts in the martial arts world within just 5 years of his debut, but he also challenged the dominance of elder Tang Yunzhong in poison techniques. Tang Yinhe, the grandson who was only 10 years old at the time, couldn't hide his perplexity at the sight of his nervous elder Tang Yunzhong. Elder had always shown great pride, saying that no one could match the Tang clan when it came to poison. But this was the first time he had seen his grandfather so nervous that he was even breaking out in a cold sweat. They say that an expert recognizes another expert. Even his father Tang Hoyun, the junior clan leader, had a dark expression whenever he saw Baekyu. At the mere age of 10, Tang Yinhe couldn't tell how strong the Lord of 10,000 Poisons Baekyu was, but judging from their reactions he could tell that he was no ordinary expert. "Father. No clan leader. Do you really have to face that person? No matter how I look at it, that person has reached the realm of the 10,000 poison pool body." 10,000 poison pool body? It was the highest realm said to surpass even the realm of a poison man. As far as he knew, his grandfather had reached the realm of a poison man. Tang Yinhe looked at Baekyu and his 3 sons, with Baek Saha being the successor, with an expression of disbelief. Had that person really reached a realm that even his grandfather and father had not attained? How could this be possible? As he was perplexed, his grandfather Tang Yunzhong opened his mouth. If we back down here, the family's reputation will be ruined. Even if he has reached the 10,000 poison pool body, we have the formless poison. But that's enough. This showdown can no longer be avoided. Clan leader. If this father fails to survive the showdown, rise to the position of the clan leader. You must complete the formless poison technique. That is the only way to match or counter the 10,000 poison pool body. Grandfather had already prepared himself to lose his life. The atmosphere on the family's side became gloomy. At that moment, someone they had never seen before approached where they were. What muscles! His muscles were so thick that his upper and lower garments looked like they were about to burst. Not only did he have such incredible muscles, but his face was also extremely handsome. As he approached, Elder Tang Yunzhong and his father Tang Hoyun seemed to recognize him and greeted him with surprised faces. Lord Yu Mujin. It's been a while, you two. The two men, who always exuded confidence no matter who they met, were strangely cautious towards this man who looked to be only in his mid-30s. Then his father Tang Hoyun spoke with a joyful expression, clasping his hands together in respect. Lord Mujin. Please, for our clan leader. Ahem. Grandfather Tang Yunzhong interrupted his father's words midway. Then he also showed respect to the man named Yu Mujin and said, Lord Mujin, you don't need to intervene in this matter. This is a place where the representatives of the families face each other in a fair showdown. It is absolutely not a situation where our family is in danger. At his words, Yu Mujin turned his head, glanced at the Lord of 10,000 Poisons Baekyu and spoke. I heard it's a life or death match. That's right. Are you sure you don't need my help? That's right. This is a matter of the Tang clan's honor. You will surely lose your life. At those words spoken with certainty, Tang Inhei couldn't contain his anger and raised his voice at him. Who are you to say that grandfather will? Ahem. Who told you to intervene without permission? Grandfather, but... Apologize to Lord Mujin at once. Grandfather. The Yu family has long protected our family. You cannot act rashly like a child who doesn't know any better. What? They have protected our family? As he was puzzled, Yu Mujin extended his large hand and patted his head. So you're Tang Inhei. It seems like only yesterday when you were crawling around, but you've grown a lot. Clank clank. As he patted his head, a strange sound was heard. He glanced up and saw a golden bracelet on his right wrist. Boom. Tang Qiuyang, the deputy head of the Sichuan Tang clan, couldn't close his mouth. What was he seeing right now? Green Forest Fighting King Suk Peung, known as one of the top experts of the 8 stars in the martial arts world, was hammered into the ground by a single punch from a young man. The power of the seemingly simple punch was beyond imagination. Just by looking at the ground that had caved in nearly 5 jang, approximate 16.5 meters, one could tell. The Green Forest bandits were in an uproar. It was a natural reaction since their leader had been attacked by someone of unknown identity who had suddenly appeared. Then someone's voice was heard from the side. That person has appeared. Brother. No clan leader. Tang Qiuyang was perplexed to see clan leader Tang Inhei beside him, not knowing when he had approached. Then he asked in confusion. Clan leader. Do you happen to know that young man? That golden bracelet on his wrist. Don't you recognize it? Golden bracelet? Could it be? The eyes of Deputy Head Tang Qiuyang, who had noticed the golden bracelet on the young man's right wrist, widened. There was a long-standing instruction passed down in the Tang clan's bloodline. It was a message about the Yu family who protected the Tang clan. When the Tang clan is in danger, if they appear, greet them with utmost respect. There was one criterion to recognize them. It was the golden bracelet worn on their wrist. He's not the one from back then. He was much younger than the man called Yu Mujin. It had been over 50 years since he had seen the Yu family after his grandfather, the Lord of 10,000 Poisons Tang Yunzhong, had lost his life in the showdown that day. Could he be a descendant of that person? Although he had seen Yu Mujin, he had never truly witnessed his skills. But now, seeing the Green Forest Fighting King Suk Peung hammered into the ground by that young man's hand, he couldn't help but feel amazed. Sizzle. White steam gushed out from Yu Mujin's body, whose muscles had swollen and turned red not only on his right arm but all over his body. Feeling intimidated by this sight, the Green Forest bandits couldn't move rashly. To them, their leader Green Forest Fighting King Sukpaeong was an untouchable monster. But that very leader had been pounded into the ground by a single punch. Just what was the identity of this monster? As they were perplexed, "Boss!" someone shouted with a flushed face. Sukpaeong, who they thought might have lost consciousness after being hammered into the ground with his head by a single punch, was getting up. "Oh, you're quite sturdy." Yumujin looked at him with intrigued eyes and spoke. "Grit." Sukpaeong wanted to spit out the blood welling up inside, but he forcibly suppressed it. It was the first time he had felt faint from a single punch. No, it wasn't the first time. It was the first time since his showdown with that person, one of the six heavens. However, back then he was no different from a greenhorn who had not yet completed his martial arts, so it was difficult to compare to the present. "Boss." The boss got up. "Woo-wah." The nearby Green Forest bandits cheered. He understood that they were happy their leader had gotten up, but they should stop shouting. His pride was hurt and it felt like his dignity was hitting rock bottom because of their cheers. "Damn it. Do I have to use that?" He had a secret move that he had been hiding for a rematch with that person from the Six Heavens. But he wasn't confident. Not only did this monster catch his tyrannical punch, which held 10-star power, with one hand, but he also made his legs go weak with a single strike. Experts had a sense that only experts possessed. Even if he used his secret move and fought with the resolve to go down together, could he defeat this monster-like fellow? Sukpaeong gradually regained his senses. Unlike other Green Forest bandits, he was not the type to be belligerent but rather belonged to the cold and calculating side. Therefore he valued practicality over saving face. Damn it! Who would have thought that such a variable would get entangled in this matter that he had started to have her? The fellow said he was from the Yu family, so he didn't seem to be from the Tang clan. But why was he suddenly appearing and interfering with them? Suddenly he recalled the words the fellow had said about just leaving. He had called out to that fellow. "I did something stupid." He should have let him go when he said he was leaving. With this in mind, Sukpaeong finally stabilized his boiling body and raised his head. Ha! There was a glint in Sukpaeong's eyes as he raised his head. The reason was, "You bastard, what is your relationship with Hei Yokwon, the alliance leader of the Four Evils Alliance?" Sizzle. The moment he saw the reddened skin and the white steam flowing from his entire body, Sukpaeong thought of only one person. It was Hei Yokwon, the alliance leader of the Four Evils Alliance, which could be considered the center of the current evil faction. Hei Yokwon. Yeah. Your appearance is undoubtedly the advancing blood-golden body of Hei Yokwon. The advancing blood-golden body and the Hei family. So you do have a connection. I guess we're not unrelated. Even if we haven't been in contact for a long time, for now, I know we're considered distant relatives. At Yumujin's words, Sukpaeong thought it was fortunate. The Four Evils Alliance and the Green Forest were practically allies as part of the same evil faction. If this fellow had even the slightest connection to the Four Evils Alliance, he could use it as an excuse to naturally avoid a fight. If you're a distant relative, then you do have a connection. Moreover, you even cultivated the same martial arts. The same martial arts? Yeah. I think there's some misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Yes. The people in my family don't cultivate martial arts. What? What was he talking about now? That appearance was undoubtedly the advancing blood-golden body of the Heiyu clan. Then Yumujin scratched his head and said, "Should I say it's achieved through natural talent and moderate muscle training?" Muscle training? Well, that's not important. And about that martial art? It's something that should be cultivated by those who aren't naturally gifted or are weak anyway. Bulge. Bulge bulge. As soon as he finished speaking, Yumujin's right arm muscles swelled even more. Seeing his appearance, Sukpaeong was terrified. The moment the fellow clenched his fist, all 5 senses, no 6 senses of his body were giving him a warning. It was very dangerous. Hey, you said your name is Yumujin. So, if you're a distant relative of the Hei family, you're practically part of the evil faction like us, so we have no reason to fight. We're not fighting. What? Then why are you clenching your fist like that? To drive you guys away. I was going to just leave, but it wouldn't be bad to stretch my body a bit since it's been a while. At that moment, Yumujin stopped mid-sentence and turned his head. Then he looked somewhere, tilted his head and opened his mouth. Is this related to you guys right now? What are you talking about? Related to us. It's not? But it's coming with a terrifying force. A terrifying force, what do you? Flinch. Suk Peung stopped mid-sentence and turned his head in the direction Yu Mujin was looking with a startled face. That was because he felt something tyrannical and sinister approaching at a tremendous speed from that direction. The energy was so eerie and strong that it sent chills down his spine. Then from the void in the northeast, a black fog swirled, and a figure was seen riding on a sword flying towards them. It was none other than Mok Jiangun. Chapter 332, Sichuan's Upheaval 5. Go. Run faster. The expelled monk Jiajiamzhong, holding the reins of the carriage horse, shouted and urged the horse. Then the running horse spoke with a dumbfounded expression as if it were absurd. You damned bald monk. Do you really think I'm a horse? And I'm already running with all my might without you nagging. Although it had the appearance of a horse, its true identity was the demonic beast Aliu. The speed of Aliu when it ran with determination was incomparably faster than any ordinary horse. Therefore all of Mok Jiangun's subordinates were riding on the roof of the carriage. I never thought I'd see someone riding a sword and flying. Sword riding and flying. Literally meant riding on a sword and flying. It sounded simple at first, but freely riding and controlling a sword was a sophisticated technique as much as sword mastery. As Siep Chun clicked his tongue and spoke, Mong Muyak also recalled that scene from earlier. Mok Jiangun, who had suddenly gotten off the carriage, had an unusual expression on his face, and saying he would go ahead first, he flew away riding on his sword. Why was he in such a hurry all of a sudden? Was it because of the confrontation between the Sichuan Tang clan and the Green Forest? Anyway, it seemed like they had to hurry and catch up with their lord. The expression of Tang Inhei, the head of the Sichuan Tang clan, hardened. It was due to the sudden appearance of another unknown person. Who the hell is that? The sight of him standing on a single sword, accompanied by a swirl of black fog, was truly mystical and even awe-inspiring. Clan leader. Isn't that sword riding and flying? Deputy head Tang Chil-young spoke with his mouth agape, unable to hide his astonishment. Sword riding and flying was something impossible unless one had reached a high level of sword mastery, lightness skill and true energy control. Even he himself, who had surpassed the pinnacle stage and reached the realm of transformation, couldn't perform such a divine skill. Tang clan leader Tang Inhei's gaze didn't leave the unidentified person riding on the sword. Although he was far away, he looked very young at a glance. However, if he had reached such a realm, he could appear young due to profound internal energy and rebirth, so it was difficult to make a judgment. Just what is going on? Tang Inhei was more confused by the situation than the identity of that person. Not only had the hidden protector of the Tang clan, the Yu family, appeared, but a supreme expert who could be called not just 8 stars but even a true grandmaster had also shown up. He could guess that the appearance of the Yu family member was due to the confrontation with the Green Forest. But he couldn't understand that person at all. Why had such a monster-like individual appeared at this particular time? It was a truly coincidental occurrence. No one had ordered or done it, but just a moment ago the Green Forest bandits were in an uproar due to the confrontation between Green Forest fighting King Suk Peung and the unidentified young man named Yu Mujin. But now it was as if no one was present and silence filled the air. Everyone present was tense and gripped by a sense of intimidation due to the appearance of a single person. It was none other than Mok Jiangun. Rumble. It was like the feeling of prey standing before a ferocious beast. This is crazy. Green Forest fighting King Suk Peung couldn't take his eyes off Mok Jiangun, his face filled with tension. He was emitting a sinister and tyrannical black energy from his entire body, and just looking at it made it difficult to breathe. It wasn't that he hadn't had a similar experience before. It was the same as when he first met that person, one of the 6 heavens. At that time he was also crushed by the overwhelming presence and found it difficult to even speak. But he never thought he would experience that feeling again. Who the hell is he? Aside from that one person from the 6 heavens, he knew the appearances of most others to some extent. But he had never seen someone like that before. Based on his face alone, he didn't even look like he was in his 20s. But it was hard to believe what he saw. However, one thing he could be certain of. He's definitely not from the righteous path. There was no one among the righteous cultivators who possessed such a sinister energy. The energy emanating from that person felt like darkness itself. If that was the case, he seemed to be from the evil faction, but he had never heard of such a person even in the Four Evils Alliance. At that moment, tap, Mok Jaeongun, who had been riding on the demonic sword Evil Commandment Sword, landed on the ground with a light movement. The moment Mok Jaeongun's figure touched the ground, the Green Forest bandits unknowingly took a deep breath and exhaled. They hadn't been able to breathe properly due to the overwhelming pressure, although it wasn't for very long. Then someone opened their mouth. I don't know what purpose you're here for, but if you had just left, you would have almost regretted it. It was none other than Yu Mujin. Even Green Forest fighting king Suk Peung, one of the top experts of the 8 stars in the martial arts world, was overwhelmed by the pressure and couldn't speak, but he was different. Although it was quite different from when he faced Suk Peung, he still had a relaxed demeanor. It was a composure that could only come from absolute confidence in one's own strength. Click. It was a composure that could only come from absolute confidence in one's own strength. Click. At that moment, the demonic sword Evil Commandment Sword, which had been floating in the air, was sheathed into the scabbard at Mok Jaeongun's waist. As the sword was sheathed, Mok Jaeongun swept his gaze around once and then turned his eyes to Yu Mujin, opening his mouth. Since you were fighting the Green Forest, I can assume you're on the same side as the Tang clan, right? In response to that question, Yu Mujin scratched his head and replied, well, in the current situation it seems that way, but asking such a question means you're not someone who is favorable towards the Sichuan Tang clan, right? Favorable. For now, I guess you could say that. At Mok Jaeongun's words, Yu Mujin rubbed his unnaturally swollen chest muscles and said, as I thought, it would have been a big problem if I had just left. A big problem? It was fine to leave these mountain bandits alone, but it seems you're different. Rumble. A glint flashed in Yu Mujin's eyes. He had exceptional eyes passed down from his ancestors. It allowed him to discern the strength of an opponent through color, and the Mok Jaeongun he saw with his 2 eyes was completely different from anyone he had seen before. It was the first time he had seen someone completely black. The size of that black energy was overwhelming everyone present. If I had just left, it would have caused trouble. It was difficult to compare the danger level with the Green Forest bandits. Even if they outnumbered them, the potential of the Sichuan Tang clan was not to be underestimated. But that seemed quite dangerous. He wasn't the only one thinking this way. Strange. With his third eye open, Mok Jaeongun could also clearly see Yu Mujin's energy. That energy was completely different from ordinary martial artists. It was similar to innate true energy yet different. The purity of the energy was high, and it seemed like the surrounding natural energy had gathered together. It was quite interesting how it circulated throughout his entire body. Whoosh. What was even more peculiar was that the energy was condensed and suppressed by something. That was probably that thing. It seemed to be because of the golden bracelet he was wearing on his right hand. Mok Jaeongun's eyes narrowed. The golden bracelet didn't seem to be an ordinary object. An immense amount of innate true energy that couldn't even be compared to So Yaren or Ju Wunhyang was emanating from the bracelet, and apart from that, it formed hundreds, no thousands of loops as if numerous spell techniques were merged into one. That object had surpassed the level that could be called a treasured artifact. At that moment, Yu Mujin turned his neck, stretching his muscles and opened his mouth. Bulge. Bulge. Since you said you're not favorable towards the Tang clan, I can't just leave, so I'll have to subdue you. Subdue? You're saying something interesting. At his words, Mok Jaeongun's eyes sharpened. It seemed he had to deal with this person first in order to settle things with the Tang clan. If this person deliberately tried to interfere, it would be difficult to do anything. Shing. Mok Jaeongun drew the demonic sword Evil Commandment Sword from his waist. Tremble, tremble, tremble. As if detecting the energy of a strong opponent it was meeting for the first time, the blade of Evil Commandment Sword trembled, emitting a strong resonance. It was like a competitive spirit. Fighting King. What should we do about this? Are you just going to watch? At the question of Hyung Taek, who could be considered his left arm, Green Forest fighting King Suk Peung couldn't hide his inner perplexity. That newly appeared bastard and the guy named Yu Mujin were having a conversation and creating an atmosphere to fight as if they didn't even care about them. It was a humiliating situation, so it was absurd, but it seemed that if they carelessly intervened between these two monsters, it would only cause trouble. Damn it. However, no matter what, he couldn't easily admit it and suggest retreating in front of his numerous subordinates. Fighting King. At the urging call of his left arm, the throwing killing guest Hyung Taek, Suk Paeung frowned and then turned his gaze to the newly appeared person. Wait a moment. Come to think of it, that person said with his own mouth that he wasn't favorable towards the Tang clan. If that was the case, he needed to think differently. There was a saying that the enemy of an enemy is a friend. If that person's goal was also the Tang clan, he might be able to persuade him and form an alliance. With this in mind, Suk Paeung spoke to Mok Jae-eun. Hey, if your goal is also the Tang clan, how about working together? Yes, this is it. It wasn't bad as a justification. He could make up an excuse to his subordinates, and while these monsters fought each other, he could pressure the Tang clan and gain practical benefits. If this guy had any sense, he wouldn't easily dismiss his proposal. While you deal with that guy, we will. Boom. Before he could even finish his words. With an ear-splitting explosive sound and an immense energy rushing towards him, Suk Paeung crossed his arms without a moment to think. What? Whoosh. Despite activating his protective energy, his body was pushed back more than 10 steps, unable to withstand the tremendous shockwave. He wondered what was happening all of a sudden, but when he lowered his crossed arms, his eyes widened. Mok Jae-eun's sword and Yu Mujin's fist had already clashed and were in a confrontational state. What was astonishing was that even though they had merely clashed their sword and fist, the aftermath was so strong that the ground where the two were standing had caved in more than 10 jang, approximate 33 meters, and was cracked and split in all directions. Ugh. Bo boss. The nearby executives of the Green Forest, including the left arm throwing killing guest Hyung Taek, were also blown away by this aftermath and were rolling on the ground. They seemed to have failed to withstand this power at all and had even suffered internal injuries. At this sight, gulp. Suk Paeung swallowed his dry saliva. These two monsters were on a completely different level. They hadn't even clashed properly and had only exchanged a single move, but if the aftermath was this severe, his subordinates might end up dying in large numbers if he wasn't careful. Sacrificing them just to protect his pride was a foolish act. Therefore, Suk Paeung no longer cared about his pride or anything else and shouted to his subordinates, infusing his internal energy. Retreat. As soon as his shout ended, the Green Forest bandits quickly distanced themselves and retreated in an orderly manner as if they had been waiting for it. As the Green Forest bandits moved away, Yu Mujin grinned and said, "Now that the distractions are gone, let's do this properly." Bulge. Bulge. With those words, Yu Mujin's reddened right arm muscles swelled even more. Then Mok Jae-eun's figure, who had been matching his demonic sword evil commandment sword against his fist, gradually began to be pushed back. Whoosh. It was when he had been pushed back about 5 steps. Ripples appeared on the blade of Mok Jae-eun's sword. Along with that, Yu Mujin's fist, which had been pushing forward with strength, was bounced upward as if repelled by the wondrous principle of the scripture of transferring true chi. Huh. It didn't end there. Bam. Mok Jae-eun stomped his foot strongly on the ground. Then pulling the blade, he thrust the sword forward. With that, a whirlwind of chi surged from the tip of the sword, rushing towards Yu Mujin's abdomen with a storm-like momentum.